again, to give a little context, Jesus and his disciples in all of the area, all the people in the area have just heard that John the Baptist has been beheaded. He's been murdered by Herod. And we pick up right where they found out. It says, when Jesus heard this, he withdrew from there in a boat to a deserted place by himself. But when the crowds heard it, they followed him on foot from the towns. When he went ashore, he saw a great crowd, and he had compassion for them and cured their sick. When it was evening, the disciples came to him and said, "This is a deserted place, and the hour is now late. Send the crowds away so that they may go into the villages and buy food for themselves." Jesus said to them, "They need not go away. You give them something to eat." They replied, "We have nothing here but 5 loaves and 2 fish." He said, "Bring them here to me." And then he ordered the crowds to sit down on the grass, and taking the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, he looked up to heaven and blessed and broke the loaves and gave them to the disciples, and the disciples gave them to the crowds. All ate and were filled. And they took up what was left over of the broken pieces, 12 baskets full. Those who ate were about 5,000 men, besides the women and the children. This too is the word of our Lord.
Thanks be to God.
We've got what you could call a crisis in both of our scriptures this morning. John did a really good job of explaining the context when it comes to Jacob and his brother Esau. See, Jacob and Esau, they were classic sibling rivalry kind of candidates. They were twins. Esau came out first, but not shortly after was Jacob hanging on to Esau's heel. And as they grew up, turned out that parents showed favoritism back then too. Isaac, Jacob and Esau's dad, loved Esau. He was the bigger of the two. He was the burlier of the two. He was the guy who liked to camp and hunt and fish and do all the guy things, I guess. Jacob was the one who was what we would consider today, where I grew up in Arkansas. It may not be a PC term anymore, I don't know, but he was a mama's boy. He hung out with mom, kind of followed her around, and she loved him more than Esau. As you can imagine, this didn't play well between the boys. And Jacob went out of his way to wrestle his brother, Esau, out of his rights. As the firstborn, by rights, everything belonged to him once Dad died. Jacob didn't think that was fair. So you may be familiar with the story of Jacob making a pot of stew and Esau coming in from the field being so hungry. He was famished. "If I don't eat right now, I'm going to die," says Esau. And Jacob says, "Sell me your birthright and you can have it." Esau says, "Fine, take it, whatever." But then he held him to it. Then Jacob conspires with his mother. "Isaac's getting old. Dad can't see very well anymore." "You know, you're right. Here's what you should do. Go out, kill a goat, cook it up, take the skin, the fur, put it on your arms, because then you'll be hairy like your brother. Go into your dad. He doesn't know which one's which. Put your arm next to him. Let him feel it. He's going to think you're Esau. Let him bless you and give you the blessing." Jacob does it. Isaac gives him the blessing. And then Jacob does this to his brother Esau. Esau is so mad he could kill his brother. From day one, Jacob and Esau have been in crisis mode with one another. And when Esau was so mad he could kill his brother, Jacob said, "Bye." And he fled. He fled to where his grandpa, Abraham, was from. And there he stayed with his uncle Laban for 14 years. And Jacob, who had spent so many years conniving and deceiving and just trying to get everything he wanted for himself, got a little taste of his own medicine by his uncle Laban. Maybe you're familiar with that story. Jacob loved Rachel, wanted to marry Rachel. And Laban said, great. Wedding day comes, veil, can't see the face. Guess who's in it? The other sister, Leah. Work for me for 7 more years, and then you can marry Rachel, says Laban. So Jacob works. He gets to marry Rachel. Then he hears that Dad isn't doing too well, and he needs to go back. But if I go back, I'm going to meet my brother Esau, and he wants to kill me. So I'm going to try to pay him off. You did a good job putting that out there, John. I'm going to try to pay him off. I'm going to send ahead all my goats, my sheep, my herds, my servants. I'm going to send gifts to Esau, and I'm going to say, oh brother, oh brother, oh brother, oh brother, I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you, and can't we just get along for Dad? And after he sends everybody on ahead of him, he stays on the shoreline. Now, I said at the beach this morning, this scene, maybe again, it's because I'm from the sticks of Arkansas. It reminds me a lot of something that we all saw back in the 70s called Deliverance. You ever seen that movie, Deliverance? You know, you're canoeing down the river, and then you camp on the riverside, and all of a sudden a stranger comes and wrestles with you, and you fear for your life. But Jacob's wrestling with this stranger all night long, and the stranger does the strangest thing. He says, what's your name? You're wrestling with somebody. I'd think I was going to die. What's this guy going to do to me? And he says, what's your name? And Jacob says, Jacob, deceiver, supplanter, heel grabber. That's what it means. That's what his name means. That's who I am. That's what my identity is. That's what I have been at my entire life. Grabbing at my brother's heel, trying to take what's mine, trying to steal what I want, trying to get for myself everything that I think I need. That's who I am. So they wrestle. And Jacob won't let go. He's going to win. The stranger says, let me go. I won't let go unless you bless me. Well, does the stranger just say, kneel and let me bless you? No. The stranger says, get the heck off me, slaps him in the hip socket, knocks his hip out of joint, and Jacob, for the rest of his life, walked with a limp. But it was only around that time where Jacob says, now what's your name? That we start to see things change. Jacob, who his entire life had been trying to get more for himself, to deceive others, to make himself look better, who has been in a constant crisis mode from birth. He was told by this stranger, no more. This cannot continue. And no longer are you going to be called Jacob, deceiver, supplanter, heel grabber, guy who wants what's his. But you're going to be called Israel, the one who has striven with God. And from this day forward, you're going to have a new identity. You're going to wrestle with God. You're going to hem and haw. You're going to want to overthrow God, but you're not going to be able to quite do that. Because if you do, you're going to walk away maimed and limping on the other leg too. God has a way of taking us in the moments of our crisis and doing something new, of changing who we are, of giving us something new to look toward or to live into. And with Jacob, it was no different. We see another crisis in our gospel lesson. John, the one that many people thought was the Messiah. John, the cousin of Jesus, who kicked booty and took names wherever he went. He was the wild man out in the wilderness that everyone thought was going to rally the troops, kick out the Romans, and usher in God's reign of peace. He lost his head. And now no one knows what to do. And Jesus himself is taken aback. Crisis sets in. He's the forerunner of the Messiah. He's the one who's supposed to pave the way and make the way straight so that God can come. And now he's dead. So Jesus takes a moment. But we all know Jesus can't be alone for long. Without John, who are we going to follow, says everyone. And they seek Jesus out, and they find him, and Jesus takes compassion upon them. And he takes what little they have and provides for everyone until their bellies are full. And shows in a very real, tangible way that God's grace comes in the strangest of ways. Have you ever been in a moment of crisis? I'm willing to bet you have. Whether it's your own personal crisis, whether it's a crisis in your family, whether it's your friends, whether it's at your workplace, we are very well steeped. We are marinated in crisis, aren't we? And we wrestle and we strive to keep our heads above water, to stop from sinking, whatever the metaphor you want to use is. We wrestle with who we are and what we are to do and how we're going to get out of this unscathed. And yet, how many of you are scarless from the crises that you have lived through? They may not be visible. Maybe they're emotional scars, spiritual scars. Maybe they are physical scars that you bear in this world from moments of crisis, moments when you think, I have done everything I can. I have tried to do this on my own. I cannot get through this unscathed. Oh my God, what's going to happen to me? I think I might die. Or, oh my goodness, I have no idea what the future may hold. And somehow you're here. Somehow you're here. Maybe it's because it's the business I'm in, but I'd say it's by the grace of God you're here. And every one of you who are seated here, because in some very real way, you have found that in a moment of crisis, there is hope and there is direction and there is some semblance of peace in order to be found in being a follower of the one whom all those townspeople sought out when the one they thought would lead them lost his head. After trying and trying and trying to follow other people and other ways, you have somehow discovered that the one who will lead you in a right way is Jesus. Jesus who takes what little we have, including all the crises and the fears and the frustrations and the anxieties and the scars that we bear in life, says, I won't erase them, but I'll give you a new way, a new day, a new life, a new opportunity, a new trial, another pass. You're going to have to look back on your life. You're going to have to look back and see it for what it is, for what you hoped it would be, for what it hasn't lived up to. And you're going to have to let it go. Because if you followed me, says Jesus, it's new from that moment on. It doesn't erase everything, but it starts new. What have you got to offer? If it's as little as 5 loaves and 2 fish, or maybe nothing at all, that's okay. Because Jesus can take what we do have, including those scars and those burns, and give us a new life, a new way. I've lived that. I've experienced that in my own life, in a moment of crisis, when my past and my father died. the community of faith rallied around me and said, we can't undo it for you. But with the love and the grace of Jesus Christ, we can start afresh from here. I have heard story after story after story from you sitting in these pews and those who aren't here today who have said, this divorce almost killed me. Were it not for the women and men and children of this congregation who showed me love and acceptance and welcome and a new life, I don't know how I would have made it. Thanks be to God. I've heard it from you who are sitting in these pews and who aren't here today, who have said, I thought nothing would make the day bright again when my husband, when my wife, when my mother, my father, my son, my daughter, my grandson, my granddaughter, my boyfriend, girlfriend died. When they were killed in the car accident, when they were taken from me by cancer, when they were murdered. I had no idea how I'd make it. It was only by the grace of God that met me in the midst of that crisis. And that showed me I am not going to be defined by that crisis, but by the new life that has been made possible for me. You are not your crisis, folks. You are not your scars. You may bear them. You may remember them. But that is not who you are, because by the grace of God, through your baptism, you are a beloved, blessed, but broken son and daughter, heir of the kingdom of heaven. You are the ones who bear blessing in this world, even in your brokenness. You are the ones who may limp, but by the grace of God can still skip every now and then. You are the ones who show the light and the love, the joy and the mercy, the grace, the provision, the compassion, the healing, and the wholeness of our God in this world. There are many more of you here today than there were those original disciples who followed Jesus. And many more opportunities for you to bear that light and that hope and that grace. Jacob walked away limping and never forgot how blessed he was that this once deceiver, supplanter, heel grabber, self-righteous and self-centered man is the one whom God had chosen to bless this world. And those who sat on that grassy hillside and who feasted on what Jesus provided didn't leave the same people who they were before. As you come to this table today, this place where God takes what little we have and provides much, come bringing your scars. Come bearing your brokenness. Come lifting up your life into Christ's capable hands, into the arms of the one with whom you wrestle even today, and who refuses to let you go. Come and find mercy and healing and wholeness. Come finding blessing and light and life. Come finding a new start, a new beginning. And leave, not to just keep it to yourself, but to be the one who has wrestled with God, and by the grace of God has lost and lives to bear his name still. You are blessed and broken, but by his love, you are redeemed and made new. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.